Natural does not mean non-toxic, okay?
Non-toxic.
This
Thank
is
you.
a discussion that Latinas, we're used to it.
You're listening to the Love Your Melanin podcast with Maya and Sevein.
Hello, everyone. So, want to thank you for joining us. I'm Maya, and I'm here with Sevein, Dr.
Hey.
Sevein. Okay, and we are here recording our second podcast of Love Your Melanin pod. Remember to follow us on Instagram. For now, I think we'll be soon also registering on Facebook and also getting our own YouTube channel so that you can see us, our beautiful faces in person whenever we record. So today, this is the second day we did our first podcast. Hopefully you've all listened to it and haven't started attacking us yet, but sent us your questions. Truly, we are open for a very nice and amicable discussion. We're going to touch on things that may not make a lot of us happy, but we are here to protect your skin, your melanin, and remind you that it is gorgeous.
Yeah. So, love your melanin.
Love your melanin. Today is what's going to be our subject.
Yeah.
Is going to be about clean beauty.
Yay.
Right?
Yes. Such an exciting topic, right?
Yes, it is. It's an exciting topic, but it is also one that has such a broad definition, because it's not as though there's a specific organization that exists that gives us exact that we would say qualifications. What exactly are the qualifications to define clean beauty? Because it also guidelines, and it also goes a lot further than just being a natural ingredient, which is what very often people get confused, thinking that clean beauty is about just natural ingredients, when it includes also synthetic ingredients, also different things that come together to bring that clean beauty to us.
So you're the pro in that area, evidently, because you own your own brand. You're a cosmetic chemist. You've got to say in this subject, right? And so what we want to know and we want to share with our listeners is, what is clean beauty? How can we define clean beauty?
If you were to ask me the definition of clean beauty, it goes beyond just skincare. There's a lot of market research being done showing that clean beauty is about your overall lifestyle. People who follow a clean beauty routine for their skincare will typically be those people who have also decided what kind of food they're going to eat. Are they taking measures to keep healthier in general by exercising? That all enters into clean beauty. We'll say that the customer who is already in tune and attentive to what he or she is putting into her body, to the type of lifestyle, making sure of what their environment is like. A lot of people do a cleaning of inside their homes, because let's not forget that inside of our home there can be just as much, if not sometimes more, pollution than outside. So it's an entire lifestyle that comes together, which is about there's records of 3.7 billion people who follow this lifestyle already.
In the US?
Within the entire world. And so this is something that's becoming more and more popular, where people are aware that, hey, this is how we choose to live our lives. And through choosing to live our lives, we make sure that the products we consume are also clean. And what that means, again, it's not about just naturality. It is also about diversity and also about the types, if it is a synthetic product and man-made. I'll just give you an example. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is man-made. It is the one that we put onto our skin, and the ones that we consume as supplement is all man-made. But we need to always make sure that we know its traceability, because there is some vitamin C that is produced. I'll just say there are two sources of vitamin C. One is made from D-glucose, for example, and that vitamin C is the one that has been produced for however amount of time that we discovered vitamin C, and it's not necessarily the safest, especially when it comes to ingestion, because first of all, that is glucose derived. So there's a lot of things that come out with that vitamin C. And the process, the procedure to get this type of vitamin C, sometimes it even comes out with the propylene glycol that was used to get to the vitamin C. And so we don't want to be ingesting propylene glycol. That's not something that we want in our bodies and on our skin. But a lot of vitamin C is man-made, and that's the quality. However, there's other processes now that are much safer, that we know we can get vitamin C from wheat. We can get vitamin C from corn, non-GMO, the way that it's biofermented. We get that vitamin C. It's a much purer product, and therefore making it also a much safer product for both usage on our skin and as a supplement. And that's all about clean beauty, is also about traceability. That's why I say it's such a very
hand in hand.
It goes hand in hand, but it is also it's so hard to have one space that's going to give us clear guidelines, as you were saying, about clean beauty.
Yeah, and I think also it's a consumer trend that is strong enough to have made big brands react to it. And I think the more time passes, the more conscious we all are about what it is that we're putting not only inside our body, but also on our skin, because we know the skin is the largest organ in the body, and it has protection functions, but it also has absorption and excretion functions. So it excretes things that we don't need, or its function also is while excreting to stabilize, for instance, our temperature, right?
That's right.
To say, just for an example, but also to absorb things. So when we're applying topically different chemical agents, we are absorbing a certain amount of them, depending, of course, on their molecular size, how lipophilic they are. Then that would speak to how efficient that molecule is to actually go through the skin barrier and be absorbed, right? There's many other little details that, you, of course, as a chemist know, but for our listeners, they need to also understand that not everything that's put into cosmetics is actually safe for human consumption. So, not to say that we have to stop buying makeup or skincare and go dramatic. No, it's just a way of consuming things more responsibly and using our dollar to actually promote companies to invest in what's better for our health, what's best for our well-being. And we don't want products that are prioritizing their margin for gain, economical gain, when they could be purchasing ingredients that are safer for the consumer, but could reduce their margin for just a tiny bit. So that's, I think, what consumers are all about now. I include myself in this category, where I'm very cautious of what I put in my body, as much as I can be, with my routine, and I'm not following or promoting a certain lifestyle that's too dramatic or too drastic. That's not what it's about. It's about, making sure that whatever you're using for, just your home maintenance, your cleaning, your laundry, whatever you're putting in your coffee, like your food, what you're washing your dishes with, what you're applying on your face every day, your mascara and your moisturizer and your cleanser, products that will be in contact with you constantly throughout the day and for many, many days and weeks and months. And so for me, I would say that clean beauty has to be a formula that include in its ingredients any chemical or any synthetically or naturally derived ingredient that will be toxic to my body. So
Correct.
for me, in speaking of clean beauty, I know there's many other things that it can be englobed in. But when I'm approaching a product, whether it be a moisturizer or a foundation, and it's claiming to be clean, I expect the ingredient list to be free of anything toxic to my, of course not phototoxic, meaning it's not going to cause my skin to defend itself and getting hyperpigmentation. It's also not going to exacerbate the toxicity on my DNA from the UV light rays, but also not to have anything that's derived from, say, petroleum. That's the molecular size that is required for it to be absorbed through my skin and then go into my bloodstream. So, just to mention a few things, I really would appreciate formulas in general to stay away from things that can wreak havoc on my hormonal system, and then give entryway to many other health issues that can even go unnoticed or unrelated to me using a certain product, because I've never thought as a consumer that companies are actually allowed to include ingredients that could be harmful with continuous use to my body. Right. So yeah, I think consumers we're evolving in that way, that we're holding companies responsible, and we're really being more conscious of what is written in the back of the package and reading through all the ingredient lists. So I think clean beauty it's something that's here to stay. I don't know what you think, Maya, but I think it's definitely something beneficial specifically to melanin, to all users. But speaking of melanin rich skin types, because that way we can reduce inflammation so much more than with formulas that are not clean. That doesn't mean that everything that's clean is going to be effective. That's another thing, which I want to talk to you about also, what your perspective is on that. Like I said on our first episode, I'm so results oriented with my skincare. Yes. I love makeup. I want whatever I'm purchasing and is being advertised like a long wear foundation or dewy or a matte. I want it to perform as it is being advertised. And skincare, I also want to have results. I know there's, as a doctor, an aesthetic doctor, I understand. I understand that there needs to be, a whole cycle at least of cellular renovation from the skin to start seeing cosmetic results. But still, as a consumer, when I use a cleanser, I want to have I want to feel my skin like refreshed and hydrated, not stripped. I want to have results that can be measured immediately, but also understand that there will be results that will accumulate as I use the product consistently, right? So this is something that also is kind of tricky for me. choosing to purchase skincare products specifically that perform like, the products that are not advertised as clean? And can we have the best of both worlds? Is that possible? And how to go about choosing products that will not potentially harm us
Right.
in the long run.
So let me start by saying, because there's something also that happens a lot. I've been in this industry for 30 years, okay? And what I want to make sure that people know out there is that very often, I know the companies are portrayed as, okay, they want to get us. All they want to do is sell us this stuff, and they want to make their money. But say, for example, that there are a lot of oftentimes, if, for example, if it's a new technology, like I'll talk about nanotechnology, because nanotechnology is rather brand new. It's only 20 years old.
What does that mean?
Nanotechnology is when we break down a product, an ingredient. I'll give you an example. Something that's out there now is nanotechnology sunscreens, where they are making zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, where they break it down so much that now it becomes a clear product. And by breaking down those molecules so much, now we've overcome that problem of when people put this type of sunscreen on, it doesn't leave a white cast, as being a lot of consumers are complaining. Well, we want to put these sunscreens, but it leaves our skin looking like we were a zombie. And so how to get around that is by using nanotechnology. So we've broken down the molecules to a point where they become clear and transparent. And now it's going to go on the skin, and you're not going to have that problem of white cast anymore. However, nanotechnology, when it came out 20 years ago, a lot of people were applying it. And even within the cosmetics industry, amongst chemists, we were all divided. Because some of us were thinking, okay, nanotechnology, that's great. And it started getting a lot of traction for baby wipes back then. Because initially, when they were making those packets of wipes, there was a huge issue with the top wipes. And this is somebody who's been in the industry, so like not the common person is going to know this. So we were having trouble with keeping the baby wipes when we put them in the package. Like the top wipes would be dry. So because the emulsion that we put in there to be the detergent that cleans the baby's bottom was going at the bottom and the top of the wipe. So the consumers were not happy with that, because the top wipes are completely dry and then the bottom wipes have all of that. So how we got around that was to apply nanotechnology, which gave it better even distribution. So that's great to use nanotechnology for as far as the quality of the product, because every single wipe was going to be wet. Okay, that's great. Use nanotechnology. But then again, nanotechnology comes with the side effect of how deep is it going to go into your skin? And this is where the whole industry became very conflicted and very divided. Some of us are just like, well, we don't know how deep into the skin it's going to go. Should we be using nanotechnology and putting these products into, imagine, baby wipes? And this is what we're spreading all over our babies every single day without knowing that, okay, we had to go through this barrier of having all the wipes be equally wet. And then now we're applying nanotechnology, and then that's going deep into your baby's skin. Do you want that as a consumer? But nobody had the answer as to how deep it was going into the skin's layer. It's not like that we knew or they knew, nobody really knew.
Because it was
We're
something,
applying this wonderful
something new.
technology. We're
Yeah.
not doing it because we're out to get the consumer or we're out to like poison people. It's just a new technology, but nobody really knows the answer as to what's going on. So many oftentimes, and the same thing applies to a lot of ingredients. Oh, this is a brand new ingredient. It just came out. It is wonderful. And yet, but what is going to happen? That's why a lot of time has to pass by. A lot of studies have to be done. And it will take many, many times. A lot of companies will just have to, it takes 2 or 3 years before you're able to come out with a new product. And even then, you don't know long-term what's going to happen to the consumer or how this product is going to be eventually. So it's not about, okay, these companies are out to get us. Which is, because seriously, they don't know either. So how can we be, it's not that, it's not the demon who wants to make you, we just don't know. The nanotechnology, we were very divided because some people like me, I rather be waiting 10 years and see what nanotechnology is going to bring before I apply it. Not that I didn't know about nanotechnology and that I don't know how to do it, how to make a product that is nanotechnology. But I, as a chemist, prefer to wait and see, because I don't want to get sued eventually another 10 years that I was selling a product that was unsafe. However, there are other people who love technology, whatever brand new, whatever is going to deliver results, whatever is going to make the consumer happy. And so
so there's many sides to the to this topic.
Many sides to everything.
But as a consumer, I think I understand that there's businesses to be run, and that companies are, like you say, it's not that they're out to get us, the consumers. It's not that. It's just as consumers, we need to protect ourselves from, say, the ignorance that is going around. Like you say, it's just that there's the unknown every time that a new formula is or a new molecule is set out to the market. There's an unknown. So we have to learn to be cautious and responsible. That means if we choose, it doesn't mean that we're not going to use any new launches or new technology. No, it just means that you have to be informed. You have to do your research, your homework. Not that you're going to find out something that the chemists who are formulating or using the molecule don't know. That's not necessarily what I mean. But what I do mean is to be informed and be able to, understand what it is that molecule derives from. Like, what are the implications? When I hear nanomolecule, do I understand that means that the size of the molecule is much smaller, and that it could actually be the size required for my skin to absorb it. You don't have to have a medical degree, but we need to be, open up the dialogue so that the day-to-day person, whoever our listener is, that they can start to have, amplify their criteria and say, hey, wait up. Doesn't mean that because it's a new launch or a new technology that it's, it's completely safe for me to use or my family. So we do have to develop criteria and be very observant. Myself, in my household, what we do is my husband is very like-minded with this topic. We are very cautious. We're both doctors. So we are, science-oriented, we're fact-oriented, but we're also very conscious that we don't know everything. Like we, as a scientific community, we don't know everything. We're always constantly learning and researching. And so I think cosmetic products to actually be safe, there has to be governmental agencies, allowing or helping the companies to test their new research, their new molecules, their new technologies, to verify that the safety is there for the consumer, and not leave it all to the companies, because that makes it very burdensome. It makes launching new products almost impossible, right? So it has to be, many people come into the conversation and solve the problem and carry responsibility on their shoulders, not just the companies. And also the companies, they need to be very cautious of what it is they're deriving things from, so they can, offer the consumer and themselves the safety that they're starting off with good quality ingredients that in themselves are not harmful to humans. So just there. And then I think I would say the biggest responsibility is with the consumer, lies within, our ability to use our dollar to, praise companies who are actually, going the extra mile, doing the extra research, hiring the extra lab staff and, chemists and people, and just going through all the hoops and loops to test as best that each company and each country allows it to be, to test and verify that that it's not likely that we get harmed because of a product. But it relies, the most responsibility relies on us, the consumer. So I think that's really important. We need to of what it is that we're prioritizing. Are we, giving our buck to whatever makes our life just easier, at whatever cost that may be? Or are we able to be an educated consumer that is going to say, okay, maybe this is not so practical? Going back to the baby wipe example, as a mom, do I want to take a risk just because I'm, too baller to flip every diaper change? I could flip the wipes
Right.
upside down, and then the next diaper change, it would be the ones on the bottom that would be on top. Am I too preoccupied with just being practical all the time over any other cost? Would it be a health cost? Would it be, environmental costs? Many things that we as a consumer need to, take a break and reevaluate what it is that we're praising when we're buying. Are we giving it as a, our dollar is out of boat for the company to keep doing what they're doing, because that's how companies take decisions. Are we selling out of this product? That means that the consumer really likes it and it's a hit. Or are we not selling out of a product? How is the consumer behaving? So that's what makes the companies, and then, the other, government and non-government, other associations or institutes, responsible people, scientific heads get together. It's all because of the consumer's behavior. So when we're speaking clean beauty, I truly believe that we have the say in the years to come, as we've had it so like as far as we are today, because now companies like Sephora, they have, their clean beauty icon.
Sephora, yes.
Yeah, and that's because consumers, we are pushing the sales of those products.
That's right.
Now what we require from the companies that are producing cosmetic products and, makeup and hair products, skincare, all personal care, baby wipes, anything that has to do with being in contact with our bodies in any way, shape, or form that can be absorbed, and then metabolized, etc. So, we need the companies to meet us halfway and predict what our next requirement will be with our behavior, with our purchase behavior. And I think consumers, we respond very well in this day and age to companies who actually do that. Say, for instance, there's a company I really wasn't so interested in, just makeup wise, and it didn't really appeal to me that much. But when I actually verified their ingredient list and I saw how committed the company was to, having clean ingredients, is honest. This skincare now, I think they have like a whole, we don't get that here in Mexico, but I know in the States, I can purchase detergent and all kinds of products, but their cosmetic, their makeup line, their cosmetic, their cosmetics, hydrating lotions, and all sorts of things. Every product I've picked up and verified their ingredient list, they're actually free of toxic ingredients, free of things that can actually interfere with my hormonal function. And so I really, really appreciate that. And I think that derives in, the consumer being, having this emotional connection with the brand. And for instance, I purchase Honest every time I can. They recently launched in Europe, so that's I go to the US and Europe often to get my beauty purchases, and so I'm very keen on, making sure I find out what's new with Honest and I can purchase it from them. I know your skincare line is also very conscious, and I actually want you to talk to us a little bit about, you're going beyond just, sourcing harmless ingredients. You're going beyond that. You're actually making sure there's traceability in your ingredients, and to optimize the part of the plants, because you use a lot of naturally derived ingredients, that you're optimizing the part of the plant that's actually the active, the active part of it, the active molecule. So for consumers as myself that would really love that anything I put on my skin or is sold to me as something safe to be used as a cosmetic is not going to harm me, I also want to have results. I don't want to be like using, the hydrating cream and thinking of my other cream or lotion that I used to buy but didn't have like the cleanest ingredients, because I don't get the results. No, I want the best of both worlds. And so talk to us about what it is that you as a chemist, like your perspective, put us inside your head. How is it that you decide on how your formulations will be and how you can make them the cleanest possible?
Oh my God, how do I answer this? The whole thing is such a mess. And I'm going to tell you the reason why it's a mess. So there's a lot, I know we hear it a lot from our politicians, how the press misrepresents things, that kind of thing. Well, oftentimes, like when I said, I know I mentioned earlier before that companies are not out to get us and try to, poison us and kill us. But then there's a lot of things that come also with marketing. Okay, again, I've been in this industry for 30 years. I was around when the whole issue, let's say, for example, parabens came out 20 years ago again. So everybody went crazy out of the blue. Parabens used to be the one and truly good preservative that we could rely on. That was when it came to challenge tests. And what's a challenge test means that you put the product against a whole lot of bacteria, fungi, and other things that might, yeast and mold, that might possibly grow inside the product, and that would give us the longest. There hasn't been, as far as efficacy of keeping the product fresh, there hasn't been a single yet preservative that tests like the parabens. Okay? And how did the whole issue of the parabens start? One study that a British gentleman performed on mice. And it showed that some parabens, not all of them, okay, because you've got methyl, butyl, you've got a lot of different types of parabens that come together to make the whole protection. And that one little study, I'm not sure who got a hold of it. That's what started the whole scare over parabens. Okay. And that not the FDA tried to reproduce this study. There's a whole lot of other countries that tried also to reproduce this study. For years, no one was ever able to reproduce the study to get what this British gentleman had done, which was to show that some parabens in the mice were interfering with their endocrine system. Okay. Some of the parabens. So now, as a formulator, you know that this thing is already out there in the public's opinion.
Right.
What is it that you can do? You're not going to be able to explain to them, well, you know, the study was flawed. They're not going to believe you. So you as a formulator are also forced to go into a trend, okay, no parabens. Myself as a chemist, I know that the whole study applied to some parabens and not all of them, but I'm not going to take any chances as to using any parabens whatsoever, because I don't want to have to explain to the consumer, because once they have that in their minds, it's going to be very difficult to bring them back to normalcy and say, okay, well, you know, some of them are actually okay.
It complicates our lives as consumers,
it complicates
right?
our lives,
and we don't
want to
take the risk.
And we don't want to take the risk. So this is why I say that it is so difficult. And if you can imagine the amount of ingredients that are out there that people come out with, and the cosmetics industry, I'm going to be real, the FDA doesn't test the products previously. You don't need to have an FDA, let's say, approval to come out with a new product. So it makes it so very difficult to differentiate between the good, the bad, and what's real and what's not real. And that's for all around, let alone the consumer. So that's why I say, even for me as a chemist, that limits me as to what it is that I can choose, what it is that I can put into a product. That gives us such a small window of what it is that we can use. So how to get around that is to source out companies who are already very much involved, who have been around, and who are very involved into not only sourcing good products. And you'll hear me talk a lot about natural, because that's what I've chosen to go with. Okay, so but I know about a lot of stuff that is synthetic as well, but you'll hear me talk about natural. And why?
Right.
Why do I pick out these companies? Because it's easier for me also, because I'm already in the industry. And so I pick out certain companies that I choose to work with because they are also very transparent.
Okay.
So it's easier for me to say, okay, I have one of our bestsellers has an active ingredient called spilantol. Spilantol is actually a natural anesthetic. I use it in at least 3 of our products because it helps with the expression lines. But I don't use it just because, all right, well, this is a good active ingredient as far as to put into our skincare and its efficacy. But I also know that the company that I'm purchasing it from has their own set of values and of things that they apply. So let's talk about Cosmos. So Cosmos certification gives my ingredients this type of certification, which is something that we want, because Cosmos is not just going beyond, it is going beyond something that's organic. It is going beyond the whole sustainability. You can trace it. So I'll give you, for example, our paracrest, okay, which is the spilento. So the paracrest flower bud, how do they harvest it? Only the top part of the plant is cut. They only harvest the flowers and the leaves that they need. The plant is not destroyed. So that's already protecting the environment. They know that for next year, when the harvest time comes, they're going to harvest another section of, say, for example, you had whatever, you harvested half of your land, then you're going to harvest the other half next year, while giving a chance for the one that you just harvested to recuperate. You didn't destroy the environment at all.
How is that sustainable for our listeners? Well,
How
because
that's
the water,
because you did not destroy, you're saving water, you don't have to replant. And then on top of that, so there's a machine called a CO2 extractor. So that means that what happens is, as soon as the top part of the plant is harvested, it is frozen. And with the help of this CO2 extractor that we put it in, you can target the exact molecule that you want to use. Traditional extraction with alcohol brings everything out of the plant. Here,
toxic and non-toxic.
Toxic and non-toxic. Thank you very much.
Because
that doesn't mean that natural,
doesn't mean,
right?
Natural does not mean non-toxic, okay?
Non-toxic.
This is a discussion that Latinas, we're used to this, because our moms and our grandmas, they're all about, herbs and all this stuff. And myself, in my case with my mom, it's a conversation that we constantly have, because I do need to. She has actually a passion project now where she's learning to extract tons of stuff. When we took a training for just natural ancient Mexican medicine with herbs and extracts and flowers, and so the method that they taught us is very traditional, right? And so we were discussing this with my mom, and she was like, "Oh, but it's all natural, and blah blah blah." And I was telling her, let's go with let's step lightly, because not just because it's a natural thing doesn't mean it can actually be toxic, or
Exactly.
So that's also part of what the consumer needs to have in their day-to-day decision making. The knowledge. Not just because it's plant derived or naturally derived means it's going to be, safe. So clean means also that what you're putting on your skin or in your body is not going to harm you. And that can be a safe ingredient, can be synthetically derived, in a lab, or it can be naturally derived. But what I'm learning now that, speaking with you, let's just say behind the cameras, is how important it is for the consumer to listen in on conversations such as the one that we're having, where we actually see what's going on in the industry, how decisions are being made from what fields will be planted and how the crops will be used and harvested. All those little details that are valuable information for us consumers to actually determine, well, this brand and this particular product, because I have researched and they're being transparent with me, I can actually say this product has the least possibilities of it being harmful to me.
That's right.
Right. So they're taking all the measures possible.
I grew up with, we do everything natural. We use this, we use that. But at the same time, I think I've been very lucky in that I grew up in a household with some ladies who were born in the late 1800s. Okay, because I grew up with my great great aunt who lived to be 100 years old. So I got to know her until I was 15 years of age. And these ladies had the knowledge. So you could call them up, and we in Haiti, we live a lot all together, or even in the same, how you would call it, a compound. There's a house, this one has a house here, and then you got another piece of land, and you. So by the time we would call some
Sounds
of
Latina.
my great aunts on the phone and say, you have this going on in the middle of the night, before they even crossed the yard, they knew exactly which leaves to come down with. You just had to explain to them, and they knew exactly how to, I would say, manipulate it and make the right medication. They knew which ones were toxic. They knew which ones could hurt you. They knew those things. And unfortunately, it's not, I think it takes a very long time and a very deep, deep knowledge. I would say, how would you call it? Plantology, whatever it is that they would call it, because they knew it. They didn't have antibiotics back then. So they had to use the methods that were available to them in order to heal you. Okay, and they could heal it. Before 30 minutes, you were fine. But these women had really studied in depth as well, know what's toxic and what's not toxic. It really takes a very in-depth knowledge of what you're doing before you can say, oh, I'm going to just go with natural and not use anything else and not know the dosage, because we know that natural works. But in using natural, we also need to know that there's a dosage. For example, the first time in one of my many trips to Haiti, I gave my son, when he was about 2 years old, I gave my son super constipation for at least 3 or 4 days because he had had diarrhea. And we know that guava helps with diarrhea. Guava paste. It has pectin, the same active ingredient that you find in Pepto-Bismol. Okay, in fact, I have never given any of my kids Pepto-Bismol. Whenever there's diarrhea, I give them guava, but now I know the amount, because when I gave my son at 2 years old the guava paste, he liked it so much. I was so happy that he liked it and that it took away his diarrhea, cut the diarrhea within 30 minutes, that I gave him too much. So then for the next 3 days, instead of diarrhea, he was constipated.
Oh, poor baby.
Poor baby. So we went from one thing to another because I gave him way too much. I should have known and stopped at the first dose.
Yeah, so it comes to show not just everything that's natural. It doesn't mean it's, inefficient. No, that's not where I'm going with it.
It is way too efficient.
Yeah, so we have to be very cautious. And just like with any other, substance, there's a dose-dependent effect, right? And so that needs to be in the consumer's knowledge, and the consumer needs to use that as a power to actually determine what product to purchase. And I think, touching back on what you were talking about, your grandma and your mom and my mom as well, and I think anyone who's Latina can relate to this. There's a lot of, from generation to generation, like non-written traditions that have some wisdom, of course. They've helped and aided our grandparents to, get out of issues with their kids and their babies and take care of their skin and whatnot. But also we need to take into account that they had many years during their grandparents and great grandparents to get to know the herbs and get to know, the consequences or the positive effects and how to use them and how to see results, et cetera, et cetera. But we have been, in modern days, we have so many new options of ingredients, so many new options of molecules, and many ways of deriving or extracting, like you were saying, the method that you use in particular or your supplier uses, to extract your ingredients, in this case, actually allows you to be selective with what is being extracted from the flower. And I think that's where we come short as my generation and a few of the generations before is we have so many things that we would need to evaluate that we don't have the time, like our great grandparents, where they only had what was growing around them, and it was the same thing that was growing around their grandparents and their parents. So they had this, this spoken tradition handed down to them, and they could understand what they were putting into their bodies. But we have ingredients from all over the world with many different extraction methods in very different concentrations, right? And even one ingredient we can derive into that molecule from different sources. So all that comes into play. And I don't want to interrupt you more on how your process is, but just so our listeners can understand, what we're evolving in having, chemically we're evolving. We're having so many new ingredients to use and ingest and apply topically. But also we need to be aware that we don't have the same amount of time as our ancestors did to get to know this particular ingredient, with all the side effects possible. So we live in a time where we have so many new things and not as much time to actually focus and understand what it is that it's doing on our body. So back to you with how it is that you benefit from your supplier being able to extract the molecule that you need and not everything that the flower
So
has
yes, and of course that ends up with a product that costs more money, because obviously with all of this process. But so not only are we able to identify and just get the molecule that we want and not use the rest, but then also this Cosmos certification makes sure that we are also taking care of the planet. So we're taking care of ourselves. We have something that's pure, that's going to deliver results. And so we also have the whole part where we are also thinking of the environment. And then not only that, the part that's not used is turned into compost. So they use that to refertilize the same land. Okay, that's a whole turnaround. But then also, I like to have the transparency is very important, because then we also know exactly which farmers are doing what, which farmers get to benefit. I mean, there is so many things that are important into this, let's say, this dynamic, this circle. Everyone needs to be able to be okay with that. I can tell you that there is many things. There's the Nestle company is really, I think they know what they're doing, and very few times will I come out saying stuff about a specific company, but they need to reevaluate how they do business when it comes to getting the chocolate, the cocoa beans that they get, and especially from Zaire. Because some of these farmers are practically getting, I would say, less than $1 a day for being the suppliers of the cocoa beans. And the Nestle company knows it. There's so many people who know it. And not only is there's so much competition and so much want to be in this business, that many farmers are even breaking the law, breaking the rules. They cut up trees and do to put a lot more farmland for the cocoa beans, for which that they oftentimes they'll tell you that these farmers belong to a certain co-op that's sustainably sourced, but the co-op doesn't exist. And these farmers are working year round. It also involves child slavery. They kidnap kids to go and work to get these cocoa beans, which do not get paid. And these companies, by the time that it gets to, I guess, either in Belgium or Switzerland, wherever it is that they process it to make it into chocolate, who gets really, let's just say the word screwed? The farmers and these kids who are now enslaved into labor. So very important for us to have that knowledge from beginning to end. And there's a wonderful company out of Holland, and you know, my menopause makes me forget people's names and things like that. At least I remember the country. They started a company to source their cocoa beans, and they know exactly how it's been done and where it's been sourced from. They show you from beginning to end that everybody gets properly compensated, that everybody is okay with the whole circle. All right, no child labor, no not paying the farmers, no everything. We know in the end that it's going to make for a much more expensive chocolate, but I know I feel better buying my chocolate from a company like that, knowing that no one is suffering.
Right.
I can tell you that even the Nestle company had 2 journalists that outed them, went to them for an interview, and it did not go well.
Well, I think to bring it back to the consumer side.
Sorry. The consumer.
Yes. No. I think to bring it back to the consumer side, it's really important that because we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So I honestly don't want to think that there's actual human beings trying to, get us, the consumer, or harm us. But we do have to be more active as consumers to make sure that, that we're holding companies accountable.
Yes.
And not in an aggressive way.
Not in an aggressive way, but they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, it's just, hey, you makeup line, I want to know that you're not going to use an ingredient that's going to harm me and that you're not going to use it knowingly. I want to your sourcing is responsible with the environment, because for the sake of me using my eyeshadow that doesn't crease, or having a gorgeous color on my eyelids, or just beautiful foundation, and going out to dinner and being glowy and having a highlighter, I don't need to have somebody else's life affected. I don't need to have somebody else's country or environment permanently damaged. And so that's where the consumer needs to just open up the dialogue with the chemist, with the companies, with whoever is developing the new products. And you need to use our dollars to purchase cosmetic products from companies who are willing to take those extra steps, right?
Yes.
And what does that mean for consumers? I think, in my opinion, that it implies that we need to be responsible as well. It can mean, like you just explained to us, being responsible with the ingredients that you're sourcing and where you're sourcing them from, having all this, that money actually from a purchase goes down to the farmer and all along the line, and allows people to have good quality life, and we don't destroy other people's way of life, or atmosphere, it is going to imply that we need to purchase products that are not necessarily cheap. So
And
we need to
unfortunately,
understand
that does not fit also into everybody's budget, because I can tell you 15 years ago, raising 3 children and having my grandmother and having many other family members, because again, you're same background, you probably have the same things as me, where family members live with you as well, and the person who's better off takes care of everyone else.
Yeah. That's the way it is
I
sometimes.
always knew about organic, but knowing about organic was not going to make me purchase organic, because I had on my budget not able to afford organic, which is
So how can,
something that has a lot of people. As you know, a gallon of milk, the normal gallon of milk is $3.69, and the organic milk is $6. I have 5, 6 people I have to feed. Which one am I going to pick, even though I know this one is better for my health? This is something that the consumer, it's not that people are not aware, but they have to work with what their budget allows them as well. So I don't know how we go around that.
I would say that we can go about it many ways. One of them would be to be more selective. It would be to purchase less, but purchase better.
Thank you.
Perhaps being very conscious that, okay, I'm not going to buy every new launch that comes out, but I'm going to be very peculiar, very, very smart about choosing what it is that I want to purchase. What does that mean? That maybe I'm not going to buy, 3 products from a cheaper line that does not have traceability or clean ingredients, but I'm going to perhaps choose one product from a brand that is actually putting the money into good ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm not going to, have 3 moisturizers, but I'm going to have one. I'm going to educate myself on how to maximize the use on that product, how to minimize my requirements of products, which is, for example, can I purchase a good SPF, a good UV light protecting cosmetic product,
Right.
and then eventually not require down the road an extra cosmetic product to unify my skin tone, right? Or can I purchase good quality ingredients that multifunction, that can actually hydrate, but also, nourish, all these kind of things. That
Exactly.
This is why channels like ours, happen, because we want to let our listeners, behind the scenes and in front of the shelves to tell them what it is that in our experience can be more beneficial, or could give them, a longer run for their buck. Another thing that we could do as an industry and go about it also from the consumer perspective is try and consume locally. That means if there's a startup brand, for instance, in my country that has traceability, that is, doing fair trade, that is employing people in their community, and it's doing, fair wages, and their ingredients are as clean as they can be, what can I purchase from that brand? Instead of the huge conglomerates that, this because I myself have a personal project with cosmetic products, but you already have a line of products, and that many times the packaging takes up a lot of the cost, right? So, and the image of the super famous model, you know, on the road and the look, you know, magazines and pop up, all that implies money, right?
Money.
From the companies. So consumers, we need to be very intellectually awake in that sense, that what am I purchasing? Is it only the ingredient? Can I get this ingredient from somebody who's doing a startup and is doing the homework and is, you know, doing the best they can, but it's locally sourced and the packaging is, you know, maybe not as cheap to be shipping out to Europe, but can be cheaper to be shipped out to me within my country, within my state, within my area? Can I consume locally? So that's something that can also be, you know, on the table for consumers when we want to have better ingredients, and we're worried about not spending too much money on the cosmetic part of our life,
Right.
Right. And also for companies, how doable is it for a cosmetic company to have different production spots, you know, to give employment to different areas of my country, you know, of the world? How viable is that? How doable is it? Can
Many
it be
of the
done?
big companies have that. Many of the big
Yes.
companies have that. They have local, but they are huge conglomerates. They're able
Yeah.
to have that kind of thing already. But the big companies have that.
Right. So I think there's many things that can be done in very different levels, and smaller companies, perhaps. I don't know. This is a question I've asked some of the chemists I've talked to, and I ask you: is it possible for smaller sized companies and you know, middle sized companies, when they're, you know, opening up markets abroad, to maybe set up small labs in those countries to minimize the, you know, the expenses and to optimize the resources that the countries can give? Is that even doable, or what do you think?
That's no, not doable. I can tell you, if you ask me, that's just not doable for me, because it takes too many millions to be able to set up. You also need to think about all of the regulations. So, for example, I didn't even try to set up a lab, but I have a parent company called Morgana's Alchemy out of France. Okay, it's just it's just an office space, so that I can have a legal company, because many of the companies that I distribute to in Europe will not do business with you if you're outside of the EU. It just makes things easier. It removes that tax. There's a whole lot of things that are advantageous to them. So why would they bring in a product from the US and they have to pay 21% VAT? So in order to reduce that, a lot of these companies stick to doing business with another company that's already located in the EU. So I had to make sure that I established a parent company in the EU.
So for instance, say beauty products, like every time we do here in Mexico, we pay really high taxes for anything that's produced outside of the country, right? And sometimes it's even complicated to actually have the permits to import the products, as you've had experience with shipping and stuff to Mexico. So what if, I'm just, you know, putting this out there in the universe, what if there was a startup here in Mexico, right? And they already have some infrastructure and some equipment, or let's say in Haiti, or let's say in I don't know, Italy, or, you know, I don't know, many places. Would it be beneficial for the consumer and the industry, environmentally, ingredient wise, accountability wise, if, say, you made an alliance with a startup here in Mexico, and then, you know, produced your products for the local market, which would bring costs down because paying up to 35% taxes for anything that comes into Mexico makes it sometimes completely out of the question for, a working family with one income, would that make sense financially? Would that make sense accountability wise? And also, could that enrich, I think as a consumer, that could even enrich the availability of ingredients. Say Mexicans, we have, herbalist tradition for many years. So that could expose companies from abroad to many other ingredients.
Correct.
What could it do for a Mexican company, for instance? It could introduce, if a Mexican company could do that with a French company or an American company, we could be exposed to process, to things that are not done in the industry here, but are done very efficiently abroad, like say makeup. Makeup is, I'm trying to do some makeup products, and we've had samples from Mexican labs, and we've had samples from American, and we've had samples from European, and there's definitely some qualities that can definitely be perceived, in the texture and the performance from one lab to one place to the other, one country to the other. And how beneficial could it be for the consumer to actually have companies, make, partnerships, strategic partnerships, where it doesn't mean that one company needs to go to every other continent and make a lab from the ground up.
Of course.
But actually, utilize whatever's already up there, and
right,
it's not
that's
being so
private
efficient.
label. That's private label, and which means that it is. Of course, you have to establish something that's a very trustworthy partnership, and this is where things can be quite complicated, because it is within the industry. There is such a thing as industry rivalry. There is such a thing as people taking your formula that you develop and they steal it and they sell it under their own brand name, or they're selling it to a rival, or there's all of those things that come into play, and which we need to. I read when I started in this industry, I read a book written by the great Estee Lauder, and in it she said that she spent more time crying than she spent any time selling or anything else she did. She cried 3/4 of the time.
Why?
Because it is that difficult. Can you imagine? And Estee Lauder did not have any of the technologies that we have. She actually had to, this is a lady who gave herself a goal. She said she needed to, she had to touch 50 women's faces per day. That's how she described it in the book, and how she got her empire to go. She would touch and physically talk to 50 women a day, whether it be in different spas or hair places. That's where she went to start out. And she got a lot of stuff done. I think when she came out with her perfume, they all told her, Saks Fifth Avenue, they all told her, we have all of these nice French perfumes. Who's going to want an American perfume? And one day, Miss Estee Lauder, I love her for it, she walked in, she accidentally dropped the bottle of perfume in the store. And everybody was like,
what's that smell?
What's that smell? What's that smell? What's that smell? And that's how she got in.
Oh, a smart girl.
She went direct to the consumer. Okay, smart lady. But one of the things that she also says is that there is, till this day, I believe, there is a lauder who has one part of the formulation that they go in and put in themselves, because they are very secretive and they don't want people to copy what it is that they've done and accomplished. So that's because we all know that those things exist. Now, There's a lot of private label, you have NDA, you have a lot of those things that I don't see why, if you establish a very trustworthy relationship with a company, why it can't be done. But I know that the very big conglomerates do this. They produce stuff locally, especially now that labels and boxes, and you need to put in so much more information that it actually makes sense to produce the product locally than to start, let's say, in Asia and have it eventually in Europe and everywhere else, because for producing it locally just reduces so many ways that we get through. First, not paying the taxes. Second, being able to get in regulation with what the government requires. Because even in cosmetics, every single country has a different set of rules and regulations that we have to follow.
Right. Yeah. No. So I'm starting to understand this from your perspective. As an owner of a brand, I guess it's easier said than done from the consumer side, where it's like, hey, why don't you, like I just said, why don't you make an alliance with other companies? But I get what you're saying. Of course, you've invested, and any other person who has their own company and has made their own formulations has invested a lot of time. I have that as a personal experience. The products I'm hopefully about to launch soon, they've taken up so much time. They're, years in getting the right formulation and getting the right, getting the courage to actually, decide to make a product. And I get your perspective, but there would have to be, a coincidence of like-minded people with similar values and similar capabilities, technical capabilities as well, I would assume. And I understand it's a complex solution to having good, clean ingredients in high quality and high efficiency cosmetic products with traceability that are being responsible with the communities that they're being produced in or sourced from, responsible with the environment, right? There's so many things that we want as a consumer, and rightly so, for companies to be able to, mark on their checklist. And also consumers, we need to be able to meet companies halfway. Like I said, in my perspective, it could be being able to sacrifice the number of products I'm going to buy if I'm on a budget, and
Correct.
be very selective of what it is that I am going to purchase. In the company perspective, perhaps I expect companies to not make me purchase 5 products when they can, put ingredients into one bottle and allow me to be using that product. Also, as a consumer, am I prioritizing the bottle to be cute, and just a certain way, just, fashion forward, or can I do
of
with
that?
No, same here. Same here. No judgment.
I literally use probably 4 different things to put my makeup on because I don't know how to do it. So I've got a little concealer, powder, and my blue crayon that I've had for 40 years or whatever. It is still the same, and a little bit of blush. But I went through an entire box for looking for the same stuff that I use every single time. The same 4 or 5. I have this entire, and I'm like, well, why do I need this for? Because it's only making my life complicated because I can't find the same 5 things that I use every time I put makeup on.
Oh, I hear you, but I'm not gonna stop buying makeup. I ask myself the same, but
come on, we have our weaknesses,
Yeah, we do. But that said, when you're on a budget, we should be able to, whether we're speaking makeup wise or we're speaking, skincare wise, we should be able to do without perhaps the luxury if we choose to.
Right.
But we shouldn't have to compromise on, having a moisturized skin and glowy, dewy look with our health. Like, we shouldn't have to decide on, putting toxic ingredients on our skin, or or clean ingredients. It shouldn't really have to be an option for us to have to decide budget wise. What can we sacrifice? Well, I could probably sacrifice as a consumer that is informed and well educated on this. Maybe I'm going to opt for the packaging that's not so cute, that brings down the cost for the company quite a bit, enough for them to be able to use clean ingredients in their formula that I'm actually absorbing into my skin, right? And not be giving them a hard time or not purchasing their product because it doesn't look a certain way. What are the luxuries that I can actually go without in skincare? And I generally think that clean ingredients is not necessarily a luxury. It has to be a responsibility where we have to get there.
Correct.
Driven by consumer behavior and company behavior.
Yes, I myself definitely, Taylor's been here working with me. She sees I choose not to pay any influencer $2,000 or $2,500 for them to review our products. I prefer to put that $2,500 into something that's going to better the product itself than to pay somebody to tell me that they tried the product. No, it's just something that I personally choose to do.
Right. And I think
I want our dollars to go somewhere that's going to actually be beneficial.
So basically, we need to get smarter as consumers. Yes. We need to get smarter in finding out what ingredients are, what they do, and how do we do that? Well, we listen to podcasts such as Love Your Melanin, where we'll be talking about all kinds of ingredients and all kinds of products, what's good, what's not good, what we should avoid, tips and tricks of how to make our buck go a little longer. And also for those who want to indulge, like what luxury stuff is really worth it and what's not. So that's one way of getting educated. The other way is to actually do research, get into, the internet and start researching articles and digest that. If we have time for that, then go ahead and do it. That's an awesome way to get smarter. And also companies need to get smarter to deliver what the consumer wants, what it needs, clean formulas, safer products, of course. And also companies need to get smarter how to make things look pretty and be efficient and work well while bringing down costs. So it's a tricky balance, that needs to be made from consumer and companies. But I think the bottom line, I don't know if you agree, the bottom line should be, let's get smarter.
I'm very optimistic on that. There are a lot of companies who are becoming more and more aware, who are doing many great things, who are actually investing money into research, who are actually going that extra way. And I think we're going to make it. It's just that we need to let the public know, because I can tell you that there are some individuals, there's a lot of people as well who obviously want to continue things the same way as we've done them before, who I can't believe I've seen some people come out and say, oh, natural is bad. Don't buy natural. Don't this because of the environment, because of roses. When you do a rose extract, that it takes 12,000 petals of roses, without ever mentioning the fact that there's all of these new technologies that have been taking place that are coming through for us to have some good stuff. And so it's it makes it difficult, but I think that really I'm very positive about all of the efforts that are being made on every single side.
For instance, how like rose toner, which is a big thing, and I think it's something that's really beautiful. Rose oil and you know, rose water. I think it's a beautiful ingredient for melanin rich skin. For instance, how would you go about producing rose products or products with roses, rose oil, rose derivatives? How would you go about it being environmentally friendly? How is it? Or
Again,
should we just boycott rose products?
again,
How
it's
would you
the
go
whole
about it?
method of CO2 extraction to make it environmentally friendly. CO2 extraction is something that's absolutely amazing because again, you take the rose petal, you immediately freeze it. You take the part that is good, that you take the molecule that's good, that's going to actually help. And then there's the whole part of composting, the parts that were not used. That there are so many companies who are doing these things already. Obviously, not everybody is there, okay? But the reason why I'm optimistic is that we are getting there. We are making a lot of progress and taking a lot of steps towards getting there. And there's nothing new that is going to be just, oh, okay, it's 100%. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we can make sure that we source, again, right, trace in the right way, and that way we know that everything is going in the right direction. Because clean beauty can take us the next 10 episodes.
Yeah. So thank you for sticking with us. We've been chit-chatting about what clean beauty means to each one of us, and hopefully we can initiate inner dialogue in our listeners to make them decide what it is that's acceptable for them within their budget, within their lifestyle, you know, to do the best that they can with the resources that they've got. And in our part, well, I can definitely say that I would encourage our listeners to be very decisive with their purchases. They need to know that when they're putting $1 into a purchase, that they're promoting that company to continue whatever it is that they're doing. So make sure that we decide what's best for consumers and what's best for anybody that's, you know, involved in the production of cosmetics and makeup and skincare. And that being said, I would highly recommend that you go check out Morgana's Alchemy. They have gorgeous products. They have, you know, traceability, and that's amazing. Another company that I love, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, is Honest. And there's also on Sephora, you can already go log into Sephora online, and even physical stores, they already have their clean beauty icon. So definitely check all those options out. And well, yeah, that's pretty much it for our second episode of Love Your Melanin, a podcast where we hope to shine a light on everything beauty related that has to do with enhancing rich melanin skin types, beauty and health, right?
Yes. And thank you for following us. And by the way, this is not just for I know we say girls a lot, but that's just our habit. But men, just as much. There's so many young boys, young teenagers now, and I shouldn't say so many, but there's a few who have contacted me, written me off of Instagram. I think it's that one video where I was very upset, saying that people of color should not be using certain types of ingredients because they're going to end up with hyperpigmentation. And a lot of these teenagers contacted me, of which many were young boys, 15, 16, who were overdoing it on the sunscreen. We need to know that boys are also very concerned, and guys, we're thinking of you too. It applies to you, even though we'll say girls, because we're just used to saying girls. Okay.
Yeah, definitely think
Join us
like Maya.
again.
Guys, let us know what it is what subjects you'd like us to touch on. There's many things that we're bouncing back and forth between Maya and I, so we have many more topics to introduce to this conversation, and let us know what you think so far, and we're really eager to read your feedback. So this is Love Your Melanin. See you next episode.
See you next episode.